Hello, my name is Emmanuel Kamali, and I do not believe that African Americans should get reparations. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to the judges and other staff that allow this debate tournament to happen, as well as the judges and other staff that enable us to compete. I would like to thank my competitor. I believe that this is very beneficial for the learning development of every man, woman, and child. To begin, I would like to continue to talk about my opponent's statements on why the United States should give reparations to African Americans. My opponent rebutted my statement on not including who would receive it. I continue to bring this up because there is no clarification of 50% of African American. They bring up the issue that if one individual has one droplet of Negro blood, they would be considered to be African American. From this idea, my competitor felt that because of this, that 50% would be a manageable number. I'd like to contest to this again. I believe that this is very much a bad idea. The fact that they are eliminating half of African American population will dramatically affect African Americans as a whole. The fact that reparations are not directly affecting every African American, but only the African Americans who have 50% of American blood is ridiculous. Instead of fixing one problem, you're creating two more. Now you're creating a new culture difference between one culture, especially splitting them in half. As well as there's no direct need to pay reparations to people that have 50% of African American blood. Who says that any of those African Americans need it? Along with who would receive reparations, I also like to bring up the issue of how reparations would be paid. My opponent only stated ways as to how they would receive reparations to the African Americans. Did not go into detail how they receive it. Stating ways of African Americans getting reparations is not sufficient enough. Saying African Americans should receive reparations by monetary compensatory reparations such as land or correcting the history book to correctly depict African American contributions is not enough. We can all state information. How do you back up your claim as to how will this be done and who would perform these tasks as well as specifically who can retrieve it? Along with that, my opponent stated that I did not have any citations for my claims. I just want to reiterate that I do have articles and citations for all my claims. I will now repeat my previous claims as I believe they are still relevant, along with their citations below. 1. There are no blacks living today. Slavery ended more than 160 years ago at the cost of several 100,000 lives lost in civil war. It is unfair to ask American taxpayers, many of them from families that came to the United States after slavery ended, to pay for the wrong of slavery. 2. The problems faced by African Americans today are not the legacy of slavery, or even racism. Many blacks have succeeded very well in American society. The problem of poor African Americans are caused by social ills within the inner city, such as breakdown of families, high crime rates, and dependence on welfare. Now as I start coming to a close, I'd like just to say a few more ideas. The reason why I think African Americans should not receive reparations is because of the following ideas. This is number 3. There is no single group clearly responsible for the crime of slavery. The claims for reparations premise on the false assumption that only whites have benefited from slavery. If slave labor created wealth for Americans, then obviously it created wealth for black Americans as well, including the descendants of slaves. Now, number 4, only a tiny majority of Americans ever owned slaves. Reparations to African Americans have already been paid. Since the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the advent of Great Society in 1965, trillions of dollars in transfer payments have been paid to African Americans in the form of welfare benefits and racial preferences. Thank you, and below will be my citations. Have a good day.